Hello beautiful people, welcome back to the farm. Today I want to give you an update of the lavender haze that we planted earlier this season. Now that the hot weather is upon us and some of these have had a chance to mature, I want to show you the progress of how the lavender haze landscape has filled in so that you get an idea of what to expect the first year when you've put a new garden installation in. It can be really hard to sit back and let it grow and let it fill in. It's very tempting to overplant. That's never worked well for me. When I was planting the lavender haze bed, of course I wanted to choose plants that were in the purple family. I've added silvers in here, as you can see. I specifically chose plants that were going to do well in full sun. Like literally, this is the only time of day. It's after 6 o'clock here already, so everything's in the shade. But up until that point, this has been full sun since the sun rises over here behind me. And so these plants are all here because they love the full sun. They don't love a ton of water, and they can go a long time in between waterings. So not only are they all in that purple family or maybe the blue family, but they have the same growing conditions. That's my biggest tip for people that are starting out with their landscape and they want to put plants together. I know it's kind of, you're excluding a lot of plants when you have to plant it out this way, but you're saving yourself heartache from having to dig up an unhappy plant later. So keep that in mind. First up, let's talk about how this Russian sage is going. This Russian sage right here, this is Denim and Lace from Proven Winners. This has been putting on a show, and some of them have yet to open. This is front of the bed. It's a beautiful plant even when it is not in bloom. I love that silvery green to it, and I love the accent of all these white impatiens that I have put in here. These are sun patients, so they do well in full sun. They have been obnoxious, if I'm being honest. They need to be watered constantly. So this will probably not be a repeat because I don't want to put water in here. Russian sage, lavender, and the other plants that I have in here don't want to stay as wet as these sun patients want to stay. But the Russian sage is doing remarkably well. Loves it dry, loves it hot. Almost similar conditions to how lavender grows. The lavender has put on so much growth. It is not going to bloom this year. I have the phenomenal lavender growing in other places on the farm that did bloom this year, and so it's missed its bloom cycle. I'm not surprised, but even the leaves of the lavender, they look beautiful, so they get to keep their spot in my landscape. But the weed, get out of there. Trick a little thing. But even the foliage just smells incredible. Oh, look. My nails are even lavender colored. Well, more of a periwinkle. I think they match the Russian sage better than they match the lavender. Anyway, I digress. Easily distracted. So this was really petite. It was in a 1-gallon pot. And then, of course, when it blooms, its bloom stalk is going to reach way up high, and it's just going to be this massive presence of purple blooms until I harvest it. Right in here, I have an ornamental onion. I'm going to see this bloom late July into August. So this is going to give me some blooms later on, perhaps when some other things are not in their prime anymore. So I'm looking forward to having multiple seasons of purple blooms. But it's looking really good. It's thriving. It's definitely grown bigger than when I bought it. So that is a plus. Let's move up to this lamb's ear because that was a later addition and I adore it. I have some plans for this. So as you can see, this lamb's ear adds a completely new texture. It's so silvery. It's this beautiful sage color. This is going to be a very important backdrop and perhaps even a border. My long-term plan, because I love lamb's ear so much, is that this is going to be a living mulch. Lamb's ear grows so vigorously and it covers a good amount of space, so much so that nothing could possibly grow in it and around it because it is acting like a mulch. It's blocking the sun and nothing can grow through all that thickness. So imagine that silvery gray as a presence throughout this whole thing. You wouldn't even see the pine straw anymore. Hey, hush. Moving further up, this is bee balm right here. This is a wild native bee balm. It's way too big. I was gonna pull it out, but then it started blooming and the bees are so happy. And I just don't have it in me to pull it out this year. This fall, when it's done blooming, I'm going to relocate it somewhere where it can just be wild and woolly like it needs to be. But it really is just a little bit too unkept for this bed. Even though this is a cottage garden, I don't want it to be quite that wild. Here's a good example of a cottage garden flower that I love. It's purple on the blue side. It has a graceful cottage effect, but it is a tidy plant. This is Veronica. This is a speedwell. So the bees love this. It's that perfect color. It's a completely different texture than lavender. The leaves on it are even different. As you can see, there's a blue sage over there. Even though they share similarities, there is a little bit of differences. It's nuanced differences, I guess you could say. But the Veronica is doing very well. The bees are just extremely happy. So in just a couple days, we're going to see these amazing blue spires just absolutely popping. I can't wait to see this next year because it's going to be even bigger. This whole bed is going to be even fuller. Oh, look. All the minis are over there. Hi, guys. Let's go look at that salvia. Here we are in front of this salvia. This is put up by Proven Winners. It's a rockin' playing the blues, I want to say, salvia. My brain cannot comprehend this growth. This plant was in a quart-sized container. It was tiny. I did not even expect blooms this year because this is a perennial in our area. So this thing has outperformed everything else in this garden, except for maybe the cleome. I kind of went right past that cleome, but it's an annual and it's not really part of my forever plant, even though I love it so much. I'm going to try not to do as many annuals in this bed, but look at the bees. Look at the bees, they're so happy. So this one is definitely for the bumblebees, and I've seen honeybees on it. All the pollinators tend to love this one right here, but I'm just so impressed. I think I need more of this. I love the height of this. I love how tidy it is. It looks like flowers in a vase. I love it when a plant looks like it has been arranged and it's not floppy and it's not wild. It's less work for me because I have to go around and like trim up the plants that have like broken off because they're so heavy. So if it can stay upright on its own, I'm a big fan. Now here's an insignificant part of the garden right here. This is just one of my boxwoods. This is the compacta. It's actually a holly, but it's a boxwood replacement, I guess you could say. This is part of my long-term plan. I'm still filming, guys. This is part of my long-term plan for them to be nice and big. This is going to bring a very formal feel, but they're little bitty babies. They're doing well. They're growing. They're peppered in every once in a while. You can't see it behind that giant Amsonia right there, but my long-term plan is that these are perfectly spherical shaped and they bring a formal feel into this cottage garden. Here's that bee balm I was talking about. Isn't it just so sweet? But there's more recent varieties that have been cultivated to keep them small. But like I said, the bees are so happy. So it will stay for this season. On to the next lovely plant. Here, we'll zoom in on this cleome because it's so happy. All right, here is the lovely cleome. This is an annual pink senorita, purple senorita, put out by Proven Winners. This is probably my favorite annual and it smells amazing. It's keeping in with that lavender theme. It's done really well being on very little water. The only plants that are really getting water right now is every once in a while I would just soak the mess out of this bed and let it dry out in between waterings, because some of those plants in here, like the Veronica, the lavender, the salvias, they want to get drenched and then they want to dry out in between waterings. The cleome has done well with that, but it's really not anywhere close to the sucker hoses. So this is staying on the drier side and it is happy for it. So I love it. I love how much purple it brings. And when you're waiting on your perennial garden to fill in, I love to add annuals so it doesn't look so wimpy or like kind of dinky. And this, I mean, just that's one plant. It is really, she's earning her keep. Here we have a plant. It's going to be hard to really appreciate her in all her glory. First of all, I've got weeds in here. Let's just deal with this little booger. This is cat's pajama. This is a nepeta. I like this nepeta better than the Walker's Low. I feel like this one is tidier. It has a more upright presence to it. It still has that amazing smell. So this is its first year. I think it's done really well in its first year. I have some other nepeta around the house that just Whew, I can't wait to see this one look as glorious as the other ones. It's really a workhorse, and you can trim these blooms, bring them inside. They smell amazing. They dry so perfectly. And then if you keep up with trimming those spent blooms, it will continue to produce for you a couple more times. So you can get a couple flushes of blooms. Oh my gosh. That's a watermelon vine. I think I'll leave it. Wouldn't that just be whimsical? I had put a lot of compost down in here before I planted to kind of freshen up the soil and restore nutrients back to it. And I guess there were a couple of watermelon seeds in there. So I say we leave it. How fun is that? But as you can see, these impatiens right here that are on this side, they get a lot more sun. They look wimpy right now. Oh, but doesn't the Russian sage look nice? Okay, I've got one more plant to show you, and then I think we're done. Here is the Becky Shasta Daisy. This plant has, and there's another one right there, her sister. This has already put on a ton of growth down at the bottom, and these actually have quite a bit of width to them when they get to their maturity. So I'm excited to see how these are gonna fill in and fill out. And I'm gonna add more lamb's ear just like I had talked about, so it's speckled in. I think that silver contrast in between everything will just be so beautiful. Well, that's kind of a tour of how everything is doing so far. It's filling in kind of like I had imagined it would. I'm not disappointed in anything. There is one more plant in here I didn't show you. It's a beard tongue penstemon. It's small, and I've cut its bloom spikes off because it was taking so much energy away from the roots to produce that giant bloom spike. So it's really insignificant. I think in time it will be beautiful. I'm being patient till next year to have any expectations out of it. But right now I've got all those purples, all the lavenders. I'll be adding some more silvers in to kind of fill in and give more contrast over here. That's the only thing I can think of that it's missing. So anyhow, that's all for the lavender haze. Stay tuned. I think it'll look even better come fall and even next year. That's all for today's video. See you next time.